Hello and welcome to the May 17th, 2026 episode of Nick's News. I am your host Nick, brought to you by Some Budget Studios. That's right, we're putting money into this project of ours. We're live every Sunday, and I thank you all so much for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nick's News YouTube channel. This is a program dedicated to bringing good news to counter all of the bad news that we are bombarded with on a daily basis, with the hope of bringing a little bit of joy back to the world. Several of our articles are pulled from sites like Industry Tap, Live Science, Positive.news, and GoodGoodGood.co, but we appreciate everything sent in by you, the Nick's Newsies. So, hello Dirty Rogue, hello Nico. Happy to have everybody with us tonight. Should be another good one. We've got 6 good news articles, I believe. My voice is a little bit shot. I'll get to that in the shout-outs. Hi, Kevin. Happy Victoria Day weekend, everybody. from producer Donna. So, all right, News Brew. We're still in this wild grab bag of brews that I've been going through, and May's selections have been crazy, off the wall, wild, and random. So, let's discuss Russian history. Specifically, the Romanov Dynasty. As presented by Southernmost Pint Brewpub. This is a 10.8% Imperial Oatmeal Stout that goes well with watching an animated movie, Anastasia, and imagining someone might have just survived the massacre of the Romanov family. My dad was down in Florida. My parents vacationed in the Keys, and they stopped by Southernmost Pint and picked me up a can of this. So, thanks, Dad. We don't need the Balisong bottle opener because it's a can, so we're just going to blow the gain on the audio. And our cup of choice, of course, because we're back into Imperial Stout mode, is the limited edition Harpoon Snifter. Hey, well, Nico's voice is shot too. Again, I'll bring that up in the shoutouts. We'll get into the theatrics of a 5-minute pour. Not as heavy and dark as some of the other Imperial Stouts that we've had on this show. Good head on it. Jeez, really good head on it. Oh my gosh, that took off. Gonna have to be real careful here. Topping this off. Might need to give this a moment to settle just a tad. Ooh, it's got a good nose. Hey, Becky. All right. While that settles, let's get into our shout-outs. Did you know that I'm part of a podcast? Check out DAINIME, the Daikaiju and Anime Podcast. T and friends discuss everything and review and reflect on giant monsters and Japanese animation. If you love Kaiju as much as I do, and anime, it's the podcast for you. We've got some great episodes. We're looking to do more. So links are in the description of this video. So if you want to hear more of my voice and my friend T and as we discuss Kaiju and anime, check out DAINIME. Cheers. Ooh. Ooh. There's a little something in this one. Oatmeal stouts are very creamy and very soft, and this one's nailing that. But there's some interesting flavors that I'm not as acquainted with in a stout, so it's very tasty. We're going to give an extra shout out to Tesla Tree Service for not only being awesome, because they are day in and day out, but being extra awesome this week. According to Steve, this morning's rescue was a wild one. A baby raccoon got his or her leg caught in the crevasse of a tree. The property owners reached out to Steve for help, and Steve rushed out this morning. The little one was calm through the entire thing, and is being picked up by a rehabber for care. For the full story and upcoming video of the rescue, you can check out the links in the description of our video. to Steve and everybody at Tesla Tree Service for another rescue, this time of a baby raccoon. Cheers. Ooh. There's a little bit of aggressiveness with the hops. Yeah, this is a good one. Why is my voice shot? Well, this weekend was the season opener for Waypoint. Waypoint is a LARP that I participate at. And I had an absolute blast, so thank you to everybody who made it out to Waypoint LARP. You made the season opener for 2026 a memorable one. Honestly, everybody was top-notch. And last week was the season opener for Haven LARP. Now, I didn't go to that one. I only go to one LARP a month. But Haven had its opener, and I forgot to do a shout-out for that last week, and I'm so sorry. So I did want to do a shout-out to the Haven and Waypoint LARPs for having their openers last week and this week. Cheers, everybody. Now, I didn't do as much talking as I normally had to do at Waypoint LARP. It's cut down quite a bit. But I still did a lot of talking, and a lot of running, and a lot of playing in the dust. So my voice is a little crappy at the moment, but we will power through. I see a typo in my news quote that I'm going to have to fix live, but news quote. Jeff says, it was fun, but God, my body wants to die. Oh, Kiffin, me too. Me too. My legs are killing me. Becky says, same. News quote. You can, you should, and if you're brave enough to start, you will. That is from Stephen Edwin King, who was born in 1947 and is an American author dubbed the King of Horror, widely known for his horror fiction. Now, he's written a ton of other stuff as well, but the majority of it is horror fiction. And I really love this quote because it's very simple, it's very sweet, and it's very exact. Whenever you want to get into something, you've got to take that first step. And that first step is always one of the most frightening of the bunch. But if it's something you really want to accomplish, you're going to take that first step and then you're going to do it. Case in point, I went back to school to become an engineer. Way late in life. I went back in 2016. And here I am today with an engineering degree. I was out of college for 9 years, and I just decided enough was enough, and I pulled the trigger. So when you get into that mindset and you're ready to do it, go for it. You're gonna succeed. You've got that energy, you've got that drive. You know you do, because if you make that first step, you're in it to win it. So you can, you should, and if you're brave enough to start, you will. Thank you very much, Stephen King. Cheers. Bug update. After a relaxing weekend at LARP, I came home to a pretty happy house of bugs. Ripley and Little John are doing okay. Little John came out while we were prepping for the episode, and Ripley's been scuttling around. They look great. They didn't miss me at all. The Cuddle Puddle was doing well. They were all cuddled up when I got home, but now they're fighting again. I can hear them behind me. Sue still hates me, but that's never going to change. And hopefully Elmira will, wake up and come out soon to say hi, because I'd love to get more pictures of her for everybody. So all is well in the bug room. All right. Without further ado, let's get into our good news broadcast. And our broadcast is broken up into 4 major categories. And those categories are science and technology, health and medicine, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals, and wholesome notes, the really nice touchy-feely articles that we like to end on. Oh, was that Little John? Who's that in the back? Oh, that's the roaches fighting. If you look... There it is. If you look like here, you can actually see through Little John's tank to the Cuddle Puddle tank, and you might catch a glimpse of the roaches fighting one another. Man, they're at it again. I just saw somebody take a tumble. They're fighting over the women. All right. Bugs aside, let's get into Category 1, Science and Technology. We've got one article in here tonight, and we called it Sad Automated Car Noises. I'll copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. And you can at your leisure check out our articles. All of the links to them are provided in the description of our videos. So if you want to check out these articles at your leisure, and we implore that you do so we can get these sites the traffic they deserve, check out the article links in the description of our video. California set to begin citing self-driving cars for traffic violations. This was published to Road Track on May 4th of 2026 by Emmett White. California is one of the most autonomous vehicle-friendly states in the country. But that reputation is about to change, as self-driving car operators like Waymo will soon be eligible for traffic citations under a new California law. California's State Assembly Bill 1777 is set to go into effect on July 1st of 2026 and will create a process for law enforcement officials to cite autonomous vehicles for traffic violations, which makes you wonder what's been happening this whole time that they've been performing traffic violations. Specifically, the bill authorizes peace officers to issue notices of autonomous vehicle noncompliance and identify the violation with the date, time, and location of the alleged violation and the license plate number of the vehicle. In other words, law enforcement officials can now issue tickets to poorly behaved Waymos. Of course, police officers can't simply drop a paper ticket inside an autonomous vehicle. Instead, operators like Waymo will receive notices of non-compliance from the California Department of Motor Vehicles, which are initially reported by law enforcement officials. The DMV will then review the incident and decide what remediation, if any, is required. If a driverless vehicle is involved in an at-fault collision, law enforcement officials will issue a non-compliance to the manufacturer's representative who arrives on the scene. So basically, oh hey, cool, you showed up because your car got into an accident. Here's the ticket. You get it. If a manufacturer is unable to correct the issue or if repeated noncompliance occurs, the department may take administrative action, including restricting or suspending the manufacturer's operating permit, Jonathan Groveman, a DMV spokesperson, said to the Los Angeles Times. The bill also provides for additional emergency response measures related to autonomous vehicle operation. Operators will have to create a dedicated emergency response telephone line and a two-way voice communication device that allows first responders to communicate effectively with a remote human operator. Similarly, the bill will allow emergency responders to create an emergency geofencing message to keep autonomous vehicles out of crime scenes and other sensitive areas within 2 minutes of receiving the alert. Producer Donna says, originally California laws stated driver for the citation, so police were not able to give one to driverless cars. There's been no shortage of social media videos showing Waymos and other driverless cars getting into sticky situations, whether it's driving through an arrest in Los Angeles or blocking off a San Francisco street. This bill is intended to make the enforcement and management of autonomous vehicles that much easier for law enforcement officials and first responders. The move means California is falling in line behind Texas and Arizona, both of which allow for autonomous vehicle operators to be cited for traffic violations. Current and future autonomous operators will also be required to jump through significantly more hoops to be approved for public testing. The bill requires up to 500,000 miles of testing, depending on the size and weight of the vehicle, and demands that every operator create an annual first responder interaction plan. It will also establish standards for remote operational personnel and modernize the data reporting structure in California. Suffice to say, the Golden State isn't shying away from autonomous vehicles, but it clearly wants more control. I'm all for it. If you've got autonomous vehicles that can't follow the rules of the road, they get treated the same way everybody else does. Only the people getting the ticket are the people who are programming the car. So, to the state of California for cracking down on autonomous vehicles causing traffic violations, cheers. This beer is a solid Imperial Oatmeal Stout. Like, it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles apart from that kind of caramelly weird flavor that I couldn't put at first hand. I couldn't figure it out at the first sip, but it's definitely growing on me. All right, that's going to get us out of science and technology. We're going to move on to category 2, health and medicine. Oh, no, we're not. No, we're not. I'm blind. We have a second article in science and technology. Man, I'm a little out of it after LARP. We called this next article, What's Better Than Green? Greener. I'll copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. Got to get my head in the game. There's a lot on my mind. Oh, producer Donna also did let me know. If you're playing the Knicks News drinking game at home, get ready because this article is chock-load of engineering. She said I almost skipped all of it. This Canadian company says it's invented a greener greenhouse. Also, climate change makes allergies worse. Here's how to cope. This was published to the CBC News on May 7th of 2026 by CBC News. I don't see anybody credited. Laura Pelly, it looks like. Benjamin Fagan Jr. grew up in a small town in Ontario. His family struggled to afford food, and he saw firsthand how the combination of high prices for produce and short growing seasons often led to a less healthy diet. My parents would constantly be complaining about how they just bought something yesterday and it's already bad, he said. And then we end up having to have something like macaroni and cheese for dinner when they really wanted to have a salad with their dinner that day. In 2021, Fagan, who is a scientist and engineer by background, returned to his hometown of Dryden, Ontario, to be closer to his family, and saw the same complaints were still being voiced on social media and throughout the community. Together with his fiancée, Fabienne Velez, he co-founded Agritech North. While it started as a small local food security project, they have now patented greenhouse technology that they hope will provide an environmentally friendlier and cheaper way to help people. Their goal? To make it commercially viable to sell a head of lettuce for the $4 it costs in urban centers, instead of the $10 that many northern communities pay now. Success means the end of food insecurity for indigenous communities, said Fagan, who identifies as Red River Metis. Agritech North created a special plastic greenhouse envelope that reduces heat loss in the winter by more than 70% compared to conventional single-pane glass greenhouses. There is currently a 10,000 square foot test unit in Dryden. It serves as a research center, but also supports 100 local food businesses, such as restaurants and caterers, and provides more than 1,000 families with fresh produce. They have over 100 varieties of lettuce, greens like chard and kale, herbs and fruiting crops like tomatoes, cucumbers, and squash. Potato and carrot projects are also in the works. If Mark Watney figured out how to make potatoes grow on Mars, These two can figure out how to do it better in the frozen north. I really do like the movie, The Martian, and pretty much anything from Andy Weir, so... It's operating and delivering results in the north, so it's not a dream, it's not a proposal, it's not a study, it's real and it's here, said Fagan. Hey, Christian. Hey, Dante. Dante says, at least they don't have to worry about explosive decompression. Correct. Oh, so how does this all work? Well, unlike traditional greenhouses that control their temperature by venting to the outdoors, Agritech North has created a highly efficient climate control system, including heating, air conditioning, and dehumidification. This allows it to remain sealed, which reduces heat loss in the winter and keeps out the pests. In Dryden, Fagan says it can get to negative 40 degrees Celsius in the winter, with lots of snow. So they accounted for snow load in their greenhouse design. If it works here, it'll work anywhere in Canada, he said, adding that it costs the same to build and install as a typical greenhouse, so no increased cost to build one of these special ones. Unlike traditional air conditioning, it relies on water instead of refrigerants, so people can install, maintain, and repair it themselves without refrigerant technicians. Mary Pierre Trepanier is a PhD student in mechanical engineering at Université Laval. For her master's degree, she did simulations for greenhouses to look at different energy performances, lighting, and different building characteristics, authoring a paper on the best combinations of energy-efficient measures in greenhouses. She said Agritech North technology has some good characteristics. There are some advantages to using plastic instead of glass for the envelope, she added, and using water to heat greenhouses is now quite common. A significant barrier to commercialization is funding. Fagan wants production and manufacturing to be in Canada. Everything is Canadian, and we want to keep it that way, he said. The company is taking pre-orders and continuing to gauge interest to find more funding to continue their work. That is really neat. Very cool. Not as many engineerings as I thought we'd get, so maybe we got to throw in a couple extra engineerings. Maybe we can engineer a few more into this article. I could go on and on about engineering. Y'all still alive after that many snaps? But this really is neat to see somebody taking greenhouse technology and pushing it even further so that it's more efficient, more effective, especially in more inhospitable environments like northern Canada. So, to everybody at Agritech North for their innovations, cheers. Dante says more snaps than Thanos. Producer Donna said, sorry, that may have been one of the BBC articles I had to swap out. Last week we found out if we go to the BBC and we try to do BBC articles, sometimes it makes me try to do a paywall. And we are not going to put anybody through a paywall to read good news. So we tend to look for alternative articles that are the same topic. Could have been that the engineering one was just behind a paywall and we didn't want to present that. So, which means I'll just get in, a few more engineerings here and there. I can add them in. But that's going to get us out of science and technology. Now we're going to move on to Category 2, Health and Medicine. We got one article in this section, and we called it Going Beyond the Character. And I'll copy and paste this into the chat. I really think this is a good one. Keevan says, no, don't kill the drinkers. Well, we just dropped off in concurrent viewers. We might have just taken a few of them out. I don't know. Mariska Hargitay has helped pass laws to end rape kit backlogs for years. She just reached her 50th state. This was published to goodgoodgood.co on May 4th of 2026 by Cameron Baker. When Mariska Hargitay began her career as Olivia Benson in Law and Order Special Victims Unit, dun dun, her eyes were open to the pressing realities of sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse in the United States. It inspired her to start the Joyful Heart Foundation in 2004, dedicated to transforming society's response to sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse by building a world that prioritizes survivors' healing, according to the nonprofit's website. Hey, Nate. One of the biggest projects of the nonprofit was its End the Backlog campaign, which sought to end the backlog of rape kits in states across the country. And just last week, as of the writing of this article, Hargitay announced that the organization had achieved legislative wins in all 50 states, as well as Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. Rape kits consist of the evidence collected by a professional after the examination of someone who has survived sexual assault. This evidence from survivors is collected and booked by law enforcement agencies, but two things often stand in the way of them moving through the legal system. First is when a detective or prosecutor does not request DNA analysis, and the kits are put into storage, where they may remain in police evidence or storage facilities indefinitely. Second, sometimes these kits are collected and sent to crime labs, but languish in a queue as they wait to be analyzed for months, years, or even indefinitely. Hargitay's foundation defines a kit as backlogged if it hasn't been tested within 30 days of receipt from a lab. There have been improvements in these backlogs over the years, but the Joyful Heart Foundation estimates that there are still 100,000 untested rape kits yet to be discovered across the country. To me, the backlog is one of the clearest and most shocking demonstrations of how we regard these crimes in our society, Hargitay said in a statement for the organization. Testing rape kits sends a fundamental and crucial message to victims of sexual violence. You matter. What happened to you matters. Your case matters. For that reason, the Joyful Heart Foundation, which I founded in 2004, has made ending the rape kit backlog our #1 advocacy priority. And finally, that prioritization has paid off. After 16 years of advocating across the country to end the backlog, Hargitay announced that Maine became the final state to have enacted at least one pillar of rape kit reform, as outlined by the Joyful Heart Foundation. Today marks a watershed moment not only for the state of Maine, but for every survivor who has asked if their rape kit was forgotten, if their truth was abandoned on a shelf, if they have hope of finding justice, Hargitay said in a statement. After 16 years of relentless survivor-driven advocacy, the End the Backlog campaign has achieved a milestone. With the passage of unprecedented legislation in Maine, all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico now have some form of rape kit reform in place. The End the Backlog campaign outlined 6 pillars of reform for states to put into place. 1. Enact an annual statewide inventory of backlog kits. 2. Create a system of mandatory testing of all backlog kits. 3. Create a system of mandatory testing of all new kits. 4. Develop a statewide tracking system for victims, law enforcement, and lab staff to follow the path of a kit through its entire journey. 5. Grant victims the right to receive information about the status and location of their kit. 6. Allocate appropriate state funding to implement these reforms. As of May 1st, all 50 states have now implemented at least one of those 6 pillars. This moment is a promise that the system can and will be transformed into a source of light, not darkness, Hargitay told The Hollywood Reporter. To the survivors who have carried this cause in their hearts, this milestone belongs to you. We are far from done, but how glorious to take this moment to honor how far we have come together. We get a lot of stuff from actors, and a lot of it could be talk, but a few of them are really walking the walk. And in this case, for Mariska Hargitay playing Olivia Benson in Law and Order Special Victims Unit, obviously this has been an unbelievable experience to her, enough to start this foundation back in 2004, the Joyful Heart Foundation, and to continue to push for survivors' rights and ability to get justice. So to Mariska Hargitay, everybody at the Joyful Heart Foundation, for this milestone, all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and Washington, D.C. working on implementing these pillars that they've set in place to end the backlog. Cheers. All right. Sorry. We're going to get out of health and medicine. We're going to move on to category 3, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals. Before we do that, producer Donna said, it's nice to see someone with public voice using it for something important rather than for chest beating and spreading nonsense. I agree. Flora and fauna. We got 2 articles in here. First one we called The Only Algal Bloom You Want to See. And I'll copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this out. Oh, the coughs. Glowing algae could power the lamps of the future. This was published to Popular Science on May 7th of 2026 by Andrew Paul. Bioluminescence is everywhere in nature, but it puts on its biggest light show underwater. In the deepest regions of the ocean, as much as 90% of all living creatures may possess at least some ability to shimmer, thanks to cellular chemical reactions. However, the ethereal displays aren't limited to the deep, dark waters. The cold blue glow from bioluminescent algae like Pyrocystis lunula is occasionally visible atop waves for other organisms to see. If you've ever seen video of like a boat traveling through and all of the water is lighting up in its wake, or people are jumping into the ocean and it's lighting up, or the waves are lit, that's usually because there's Pyrocystis lunula going on and they are bioluminescing. Still, spotting these glimmers is difficult for the naked eye. P. lunula only shines for a few milliseconds at a time when agitated. However, those lights could hypothetically remain illuminated for much longer if certain chemical switches are flipped on in the algae. Hey, Tim. Happy to have you with us tonight. The possibilities would be vast. Suddenly, harmless organisms could replace environmentally toxic chemicals used to produce artificial glows, and even cut back on electricity usage for lights. Can you imagine if you've got a desk lamp and you want to read and you just flick a switch and the algae glows? That'd be pretty cool. This project was a moonshot idea. University of Colorado Boulder civil engineer Will Schrubar said in a recent profile. I was curious if we could create a world in which we don't use electricity, but rather use biology to produce light. Drawing on previous research, Schrubar and his colleagues assessed P. lunula's bioluminescent response to basic and acidic compounds. They tested one acidic compound with a pH of 4, which is similar to tomato juice, and a more basic compound with a pH of 10, which is more like hand soap. Their results, published in the journal Science Advances, suggests that algae could be part of a brighter, more sustainable future. In both cases, P. lunula began to shine. Acidic exposure made the algae glow brightly for up to 25 minutes, while the basic compound produced a shorter, more diffused light. It was a very exciting moment when we found the right chemical stimulant that allowed the light to stay on for a long time, said engineer and study co-author Julia Bracchi. For the first time, we have figured out how to sustain luminescence. The team took things even further from there. The engineers embedded the algae into various shaped objects made with naturally sourced 3D printed hydrogel. Because the acid and base solutions aren't lethal to P. lunula, the organisms survived for weeks while constantly glowing. After 4 weeks, the acid-treated examples still retained 75% of their brightness. According to the team, there are a range of uses for P. lunula. Autonomous robots and even space exploration equipment could produce battery-free light illuminated by algae. If the algae responds to other chemicals, then it may show promise as a tool to test water quality or for toxicity or toxicity. What's more, the photosynthetic algae doesn't produce any carbon. It devours it. We're storing carbon while we're producing light, whereas conventionally we emit carbon to light up spaces, said Shrubar. This discovery really paves the way for engineering other living light materials and devices. And I think that's really awesome. I mean, I'm using a very powerful ring light. I've got my lights on. Can you imagine if like everything was just illuminated by algae? That'd be pretty good news. So to everybody involved, testing bioluminescence with Pyrocystis lunula to make algae lights. Cheers. Producer Donna said, pet your algae to turn on the kitchen light. Nate says, I want my book light to be algae. Dude, you and me both. That'd be fantastic. I really like the fact that they mention that it can double as a carbon sink effectively. Nate said, or the pages made out of it. Well, Nate, you might just be jumping the gun a little bit, because our next article we called, Your Mascot is a Mermaid. Get on this, Starbucks. Think of going to Starbucks. Think of all of the paper cups. Or the paper in general. What if we didn't have to use paper? I'll copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check this one out. Over 500 billion disposable coffee cups are trashed everywhere. This seaweed cup hopes to change that. This was published to goodgoodgood.co on May 9th of 2026 by Megan Cook. Globally, it's estimated that over 500 billion disposable coffee cups are used every year. Traditional paper cups contain plastic linings that make them hard to recycle and that can release microplastic particles into hot drinks. It's not only bad for people's health, it's bad for the planet. Notpla, a play on not plastic, wants to make trips to the coffee shop less wasteful. So it trialed the first ever sustainable espresso cups coated with seaweed during the Earthshot Prize in Rio in 2025. Now, Notpla has secured a 4 million... What is that symbol again? We've seen it a few times, but I always forget what this symbol is. Euro. That's the symbol for the euro. Now, Notpla has secured a 4 million euro Horizon Europe grant, or about $5.4 million United, USD, to develop a market-ready coffee cup that is fully home compostable. Becky said, seaweed cup? That is cool. Notpla uses seaweed, one of nature's most abundant and fastest growing resources, to replicate the qualities of plastics, replacing millions of items of single-use plastic packaging, said Pierre-Yves Paslier, co-founder of Notpla, in a press release. And we've talked about on previous episodes using different plant material as a substitute for plastics. And I think we've had a few articles that have discussed using seaweed because you can make a sort of plastic out of seaweed. Producer Donna said, just the coating instead of plastic. So the coffee doesn't seep through the cup. Other benefits of using seaweed include it doesn't compete for crops on land, actively sequestering CO2 and de-acidifies the ocean. It boosts ocean diversity and uplifts coastal communities, as well as being biodegradable. The disposable coffee cup looks like a simple invention, but it hides a complex problem, Paslier said. This project gives us the chance to tackle that issue at its source. How do you pronounce that name? I think it's Carleen Sybil. I'm going to go with that, but if I'm incorrect, I do apologize. I believe it's Carleen Sybil, the Chief Innovation Officer of Notpla, told Good that nature has already spent billions of years perfecting packaging that doesn't outlive its contents. Fruit. That's the blueprint we follow at Notpla, she said. With our uncompromisingly natural solution, European funding, and a consortium covering raw materials all the way to real-world end-of-life testing, we're ready to solve one of the most complex packaging challenges, replacing the plastic-coated coffee cup. I really like that. When I was getting my engineering degree, I hit up the Starbucks in the DeVos building for Grand Valley State University quite often. Probably once a day I was there. Because I had a lot to do, a lot of work to do, working on that degree. So to see that we are working towards alternatives that are getting that plastic coating away and swapping it out with something that's inevitably biodegradable, that's pretty awesome. So to everybody involved at Notpla, coming up with a seaweed-based coating for coffee cups to make it biodegradable in the long run. Cheers. Oh, and I can feel my throat's on its last legs, so I am glad that we are getting into our final article of the night, because we are going to move on to Category 4, the Wholesome Notes. And we've only got one article in the Wholesome Notes tonight, but I really like it. So here we go. We called this one Butterfly Behind Bars. You can shine like the stars. Because I love reading Rainbow. So I'll copy and paste this into the chat if you all want to check this out. Endangered butterflies are thriving behind bars. This was published to Reasons to be Cheerful on May 7th of 2026 by Michaela Haas. On a cool spring morning in Washington state, the work of saving an endangered species unfolds in an unlikely place. A greenhouse just outside the perimeter of a women's prison. Inside, trays of host plants line long tables. Tiny eggs cling to plantain leaves. Black, yellow-dotted larvae inch forward in slow motion. A small group of women tends to them with the precision of lab technicians and the patience of gardeners. To bump these. There we go. Now I can read it. This is where the Taylor's checker spot butterfly, once common across Pacific Northwest prairies, is being brought back from the brink. Its future depends on people like Margaret Taggart, who found something she did not expect to discover in prison: a sense of purpose. I've always had a love for butterflies, for nature and plants, she says. But I didn't even know butterflies are endangered. The education was eye-opening. Kelly Bush, who coordinates the program for the Sustainability in Prisons Project, or the SPP, describes captive rearing as a last resort. In this case, it's a response to the fact that Taylor's checker spot has lost 97% of its native prairie oak habitat, which has been fragmented by development, agriculture, and invasive species. Without large-scale habitat restoration, the butterfly cannot sustain itself in the wild, and without the prison effort, it might have already gone extinct. What happens inside the program is therefore both rescue and rehabilitation, an effort to restore a butterfly population while also restoring the people who care for it. Taggart began training as a butterfly technician at the low-security Mission Creek Correction Center for Women, or the MCCV, in January of 2025. The process resembled getting a job on the outside. She applied, spoke with a panel, and earned her place. Inside prison, identity is often reduced to a number or a record. Here, Taggart was selected for her interest, her aptitude, her willingness to learn. I got the job, she recalls, brushing back one of the chest-length dark curls that fall over her gray prison sweater. And it felt like something real. She describes the work with the orange-white pollinators as repetitive, rewarding, and strangely tender. Each butterfly is raised individually on its own host plant, usually a plantain, and a nectar plant to prevent disease and preserve genetic diversity. Maybe Nate just said in the chat, maybe I missed it, but what is environmental impact of their extinction? As dramatic as bees? I don't believe in this situation their extinction is the big thing is the environmental impact. I think it's just the extinction of a species that we're trying to prevent. An example is kind of like pandas. Pandas do a lot for their environment, but their environment continues on without them. In this case, the environment of this butterfly, the Taylor's checker spot, has just been demolished. And what environment still is there is taken up by invasive species. Producer Donna just said, at this point, losing any pollinator is bad, and I agree with that. Losing any of our pollinators, especially species of bees, butterflies, and so many others, is just not good for nature. So, in this case, it may just be trying to restore a species, but the long-term goal would definitely be to restore the habitat and have these butterflies be able to go back to their natural habitat. So, good question, Nate. Thank you very much. The women track egg clusters so that family lines are not mixed. As the larvae hatch and grow, they pass through developmental stages that require constant attention: feeding, cleaning, and monitoring. I make sure that she's eating and drinking, that her plant is well maintained, Taggart says. I monitor her eggs every single day. The technician logs growth rates, mortality, and environmental conditions, building a data set that contributes to conservation science. For Taggart, the process creates an emotional bond. To be able to nurture something, to take care of a creature that emerges as this beautiful butterfly, that's just so fulfilling, the mother of three says. You watch them from the moment they're born. It feels like you know them. Since its early years, the program has helped raise and release 80,000 caterpillars into restored prairie habitats. But the deeper aim is twofold: to recover a species that can no longer survive without intervention, and to offer incarcerated women a form of education and engagement that is rarely available behind bars. When people have access to education, they're 43% less likely to recidivate, explains Kelly Bush, SPP's co-director. And connection to nature improves health and well-being. Therefore, every prison in Washington state boasts an SPP program, ranging from beekeeping to native gardening to raising endangered northwestern pond turtles or Oregon spotted frogs. The Department of Corrections cooperates with scientists and conservationists to restore both biodiversity and justice. Bush says the program chooses species the way scientists and partners in conservation should, by need, by feasibility, and by respect for the people doing the work. Taylor's checker spot was a good fit because it was imperiled, and because conservation partners understood the program was an education and training model, not cheap labor. Over time, the incarcerated technicians have helped refine the protocols through trial and error, turning their work into a shared scientific practice. Every spring, Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife, or WDFW, conservationists bring wild female butterflies, already carrying eggs, into the greenhouses, and the incarcerated women place them on host plants under controlled conditions, around 60 degrees Fahrenheit and 50% humidity. When the eggs hatch, the women raise the larvae through multiple growth phases. As the season changes and food plants begin to die back, the caterpillars enter diapause, which is a form of suspended development, it's similar to hibernation. A lot of bugs can do diapause, and that's how they actually live out the winter, is they basically shut down almost all biological function. They're tucked in a tree or under a rock, and once everything warms up, they come back to life, and they go about their day. So, they spend the winter dormant, often in small containers lined with paper, before reawakening in late winter and to resume feeding. Adult butterflies live only a few weeks, but the larval stage stretches across months, demanding consistency and care. For the technicians, the rhythm of the work becomes a counterpoint to prison life. Producer Donna says, I'd do diapause too, except Nick makes me work all winter. Excuse you, I do not make you do anything. I can't make you do anything. I can't make anybody do anything. I can politely ask that you help me do things, but I can't make you do anything. I take offense to that, Producer Donna. Taggart describes the greenhouse as a place that feels both scientific and alive. The smell of soil, the presence of plants, the glimpse of trees and birds just beyond the fence line. I've always loved nature, she says. Being around it here, it changes things. Producer Donna says he gives puppy eyes. No one can resist that. I do have a really good puppy eyes look. I'm not going to do it here, though, because it'd be weird. That change is not only emotional. The program includes an educational component in partnership with the Evergreen State College, allowing participants to earn college credits in fields like ecology and animal husbandry. Taggart has already completed coursework in ecology and lab hours in animal husbandry, and is considering pursuing an associate degree after her release in 11 months. Before her 3-year prison sentence for selling drugs, she worked in automotive service. Now she imagines a future connected to environmental work. The education portion of this program has really stirred me up to want to learn more and to pursue a degree, which is something I haven't done before, Taggart says softly. It gave me a belief in myself that I can learn and grow. The work is supported by a broader network. The DFW, the Department of Corrections, Evergreen, and scientists who join the recovery conservation across the butterfly's habitat range, they're all coming together for this. Nate says, it's how he got me too, Donna. Partner in crime, stop selling me out. The incarcerated technicians participate in the yearly conservation conference at Evergreen, and they go on excursions to watch the larvae being released in their native habitats. In some cases, they present findings, contribute to protocol development, and engage with conservation professionals as peers. That visibility has ripple effects. Several former participants have gone on to pursue higher education and public-facing careers, carrying their experience into new contexts. For instance, Carolina Landa, one of the first butterfly technicians at Mission Creek in 2011, earned a master's degree in public administration and now works as an analyst in the state legislature. For others, the impact is quieter, but no less significant. A sense of competence, of being capable of learning and contributing in ways that extend beyond their circumstances. This program has changed a lot of people's lives, Taggart says. It has impacted me in a way that I couldn't even imagine. The butterfly program itself has evolved over time. It began in 2011 with a less sensitive species, the painted lady, as a trial. By 2012, it expanded to Taylor's checker spot, building on earlier captive breeding efforts by conservation partners like the Oregon Zoo. Since then, it has grown into a model that has drawn interest from across the United States and internationally, with 37 states and multiple countries consulting with SPP on how to replicate its approach. The prison butterfly program is local, but its influence is national, even international. Thank you, Becky, for liking and sharing. Greatly appreciated. Yet, the work remains fragile. Conservation is not a linear process, and success in one area can create pressure in another. In recent years, the program has had to adjust its scale to match the slow pace of habitat restoration. There is a little point in releasing large numbers of butterflies if the ecosystem they depend on are not ready to sustain them. Operational challenges also persist. The closure of the Mission Creek facility, where the program was originally based, has forced a transition. Taggart and her colleagues are bused to the former site while new infrastructure is developed at the Washington Correction Center for Women in Pierce County, where Taggart now lives. At WCCW, 4 incarcerated women have been tending to a native plant conservation nursery, and together with the 8 technicians from Mission Creek, they will form a new conservation team. What endures despite these shifts is the underlying premise. The conditions that allow a butterfly to survive, care, stability, the right environment, are not entirely different from those that support human growth. For Taggart, that possibility is tangible. It's something I can be proud of, she says. I see another color in the rainbow. For a program born in captivity, that may be its most radical act. To everybody involved with Sustainability in Prisons Project, to all of the prisons that are taking a part of this, to everywhere that's donating and working with this, to do conservation and teaching and basically just and having a whole new way to transform oneself, to learn and to grow. Cheers. Well, that's going to do it for us for tonight. 6 amazing articles. I loved every single one of them. I hope that you found them all to be good news as well. Thank you all again for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nix News YouTube channel. We're live every Sunday. Our next episode, that's going to be on May 24th, is going to be a pre-recorded episode. I am going to be out of town, so we're going to do a pre-recorded episode. I apologize. It will go live at our normal time on Sunday here on our YouTube channel. Please check it out. I really appreciate you all for checking out all of our content. It has been really great to have you all with us. So, be it live or pre-recorded, we appreciate y'all just giving it a watch. We encourage participation as well, so if you feel inclined, you can message us or post suggestions for news brews, shout-outs, news quotes, and especially good news articles that we can present on future episodes. If you huck a bunch of articles at us, please try to spread them out across our 4 major categories, which again were science and technology, health and medicine, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals, and wholesome notes, the really nice ones we like to end on, like programs, doing conservation for butterflies, and helping out people in prisons to reform and learn and grow. You can message us on Facebook or Instagram, or you can email us at somebudgetstudios@gmail.com. Links are all in the description of this video. Feel free to like, subscribe, or comment on our content across every platform. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We even do TikToks. We've got a TikTok for news and nibbles. So we can continue to get good news and joy out into the algorithm. Please no SEO improvement advertisements. I will just move you to the spam section of the inbox if you send us any advertisements like that. Thank you very much, Nate. Man, it really is something else doing this. It's thanks to all of you that we continue to grow. And Nick's News continues to spread, and spread good news and joy, not just to all of you, but to anybody that checks it out. So thank you very much. As always, thank you again. Have a great night. Love you all, and I will play us out.